This happened a couple days ago. My cousin and I decided that we wanted to explore the woods in New Jersey. I am not going to disclose any locations due to privacy reasons. We wanted to explore the woods that were 30 minutes from our house. My cousin and I started riding our bikes towards the woods at 3. The ride to the woods was very boring, and it took a long time. When we got to the woods, we looked around for the path that led into the woods. After a few minutes of searching, we found a small, narrow path that led into the woods. We tied our bikes to a tree and started walking the path. At some point far in the woods, we started feeling as if we were being watched by something. That was when I turned on my camera and started recording. As I was recording, there was a loud, weird sound that came from deep in the forest. Here is the video with the sound. This startled my cousin and I, as we both were expecting to see something walk out of the woods. When the sound finally stopped, we were not able to see anything, so we both got really scared and ran out of the woods, leaving and going back home. Around 2 days later, my cousin and I decided that we wanted to go back in the same woods to see if we could find whatever made that sound. This time we arrived at the woods earlier, and we looked around for 1 hour. Since we could not find anything, I started recording in hopes of catching something on camera. By this time, the sun started to go down, and the woods were getting very dark. We continued walking down the trail, further into the woods, while recording, in hopes of finding something. Then, out of nowhere, we heard a loud, scary screaming sound coming from deep in the woods. This sound was exactly the same as the sound we heard the first time. Here is the sound. At this point, my cousin and I were very convinced that there was something in the woods watching us. We both started running in the direction of the sound. We were so far in the woods that we no longer had cell service. Finally, we reached a large river, which we were not going to cross. As we were looking around, we heard running and sticks breaking from the other side of the river. We quickly looked towards the sound, but the only thing we could see was leaves and sticks moving, as if a large animal was walking through the woods. At this point, we both looked at each other and knew it was time to get out of there. To this day, we still don't know what animal made that scary sound. But one thing is for sure, some sort of large animal is living in those woods. My cousin and I always like riding bikes to new towns and areas to explore. We usually explore different parks and woods. Today we wanted to explore the woods that were 45 minutes away from my house. We were both 13 around the time. My cousin and I both took our bikes and we started off on our way to the woods. We have never been to this part of town and have never seen those woods before. All we saw were some pictures from Google. We also had the Google Maps on our phone as we were following the GPS to the woods. When we got close to the woods, we saw many people around there. My cousin and I decided to wait until it got really dark to start going into the woods because we did not want anyone to call the cops on us. When the sun finally started going down, we took our bikes and started riding down the narrow path. The path was pretty smooth, but occasionally there would be rocks and sticks, causing our bikes to go very slow. After a little while, the path stopped in front of a river. There was lots of water because it rained yesterday. Luckily, we found a way to get across the river using a large tree. We were forced to leave our bikes on the other side. After a few minutes of exploring, we decided to go back to the other side to our bikes. Once we got to the same spot, our bikes were missing. At this point, We were both very scared because we knew that some people were messing with us and hiding our bikes. Since it was very dark at this time, I took out my flashlight and shined it around the woods. As I was looking around, I saw silhouettes of people standing around the trees. I also spotted our bikes, so we walked to them, forgetting about the silhouettes. On our way there, my cousin also saw some silhouettes of people standing by the trees. I knew the only way to be sure was to take a few pictures of the woods and see if we can catch anything on camera. After taking the pictures, we got back on our bikes and sped out of the woods. Once we both got out of the woods, we stopped to look at the pictures. In the first picture, we were able to catch something on camera. There's a silhouette of a tall figure on the right side of the photo if you zoom in. After we looked at all the photos, we realized we just barely escaped from the weird tall figure. Before we were about to start our 45-minute bike ride home, we heard loud running footsteps from the woods coming towards us. I looked back but did not see anything, so I gestured to my cousin to start riding away. To this day, I still don't know whether we were being watched the entire time in the woods by that tall figure. I always loved hiking, especially through the woods. It was always so relaxing and calming. I would basically always hike around my neighborhood in the small woods behind my house. One day, I decided to drive to a specific hiking spot 30 minutes away. I packed up all my gear and I started driving towards the woods. On my way there, I realized that I decided to go too late and that the sun was already going down. Since I was almost there, I was not going to turn back now, so I continued. When I got to the woods, I took my gear out of my car and walked down the path. These woods were new to me, as this was my first time here. Looking back on it now, this was a very dumb idea, to go into the woods that I did not know at night. I took out my flashlight and shined it in front of me, illuminating the path. Since this was my first time in the woods, I decided to take some pictures and videos. After a little while of hiking further into the woods, I started hearing different noises from off the path that I was on. I was confident that it must have been some sort of animal, so I did not really think too much of it. At some point, I got a really bad feeling, as if I was walking into a trap. I stopped and shined my flashlight all around to make sure no one was watching me. That was when I saw a man about 50 feet from me waving his hand at me. This was a very scary experience. I kept my flashlight on the man as I slowly took out my phone to take a picture for safety. I decided to take the picture in case I needed to show it to the police. Once I was done, I switched off my flashlight and started running towards the car. After a few minutes, I felt really tired, so I slowed back down to walking speed. I was very scared, constantly thinking about the man in the woods. As I was walking down the narrow path, I started hearing loud footsteps to my right from the woods. I knew the man had followed me, so I quickly shined my light in that direction. That was when I saw the same man, but this time he was a lot closer. I quickly ran off the path into the dark woods in hopes of losing him. I did this because I did not want him following me to my car. Luckily, I had a compass on me, so I was able to find my way back to the car easily. When I finally got to my car, I felt a lot safer, until I turned on my car headlights. The lights shined bright into the woods, revealing the man running towards my car at full speed. I quickly turned my car in reverse and sped out of there. Later at my house, I looked at the picture of the man and realized that it was very blurry, but you can clearly see a man waving at me. I still don't know what to do about that situation, but I just hope the man did not follow my car to my house. I have owned a Ouija board for a couple years now. I never actually used the board, It would just sit in the back of my closet collecting dust. On a rainy day, my brother and I decided to take out the Ouija board and mess around, calling to some spirits. My parents happened to be out of town that night, so we were home alone in our house. I told my brother to go downstairs to the first floor and grab some candles while I brought the Ouija board down. 5 minutes later, we were all set up. The Ouija board was in the middle, surrounded by 3 candles. We also had an EMF reader to add to the scary vibe. After we turned off all of the lights in the entire house, we placed our hands on the wooden planchette and we started asking questions. Some of the questions were, are there any spirits in the house? What is your name? And stuff like that. Nothing seemed to happen after every question that we asked, so we started to get bored. I told my brother that we would ask one more question and then wrap it up, because it does not work. My brother asked the final question. Are we home alone in the house right now? Then, out of nowhere, the wooden planchette started slowly moving and ended up on the no. I quickly asked my brother, did you move it? He replied with the answer no. I told him that I also did not move the wooden piece. We both started getting really scared, but we continued. Where in the house are you? We asked. My brother and I both got startled. It took me a minute to realize that one of the doors on the second floor slammed closed. I stood up, telling my brother to come upstairs with me to see what happened. Upstairs, we realized that the only door that was closed was my door. I was so scared to go inside, but I decided to be brave, and I slowly opened the door. The room was dark, and I could not see anything. I quickly flicked on the light, only to see my room. There was no one there. My brother and I walked in the room. We quickly realized that my room was very cold, a lot colder than the rest of the house. I shivered as I walked out of my room with my brother following me. We walked down the stairs to the first floor. That was when I saw that one of the candles around the Ouija board was blown out. I was terrified. My brother suggested that we pack up the Ouija board and turn all the lights back on. We quickly blew out the candles and packed up the Ouija board. The next day we decided to throw out the board. We were never gonna go near a Ouija board again. This happened to my friends and I while we were home alone on a Saturday night. I invited my friends over to play the Ouija board at my house for the weekend. Since my parents were out of town, I knew we could stay up late and do some scary stuff. Around a half an hour later, my 3 friends all arrived at my house. By this time, it was already 9, so the sun had gone down. We all gathered around in the living room, ready to start the game. I brought down the Ouija board from my attic and set it on the ground. Once we were all ready, we put our hands on the planchette piece and started by asking some questions. The first question was, if there are any spirits in this house, give us a sign. We waited for a few seconds. There was no response, so we decided to ask the same question again. If there are any spirits in this house, give us a sign. Suddenly, we all heard a loud knock coming from the wall in the living room. All 4 of us jumped back in fear. We did not expect anything to happen. I asked all of my friends if we should stop or continue, and they all said we should keep going. We decided to ask a few more questions. Are you living in the walls of the house? The planchette slowly started moving towards the word no. This was very weird, since the first sound came from inside the wall. At this point, my friends and I were all convinced that there was some sort of spirit in this house trying to communicate with us. Are you here in the living room with us? After a few seconds, the planchette slowly moved to the word yes. This gave me goosebumps, as I was starting to get more worried. That was when I asked, "Are you going to hurt us?" I was expecting the planchette to move to the word yes or no, but instead, it started spelling out a word. The first letter was an L, then I, G, H, T, S, spelling out the word lights. My friends and I all looked up at the lights above my living room, expecting something to happen. After about a minute of just staring at the lights, we thought nothing was going to happen. That was when the lights in the living room started to flicker. This gave me chills, as I got up and ran to the light switch to try to fix the lights. I flipped the switch on and off, but nothing happened. The lights kept flickering. My friends all started to get scared as we ran to the kitchen. Suddenly, the lights in the living room all turned off. My friends and I walked back to the living room to see what happened. That was when the knocks on the wall started happening. There was a knock coming from all sides in the living room. I yelled at my friends to come back to the Ouija board and end the game. We all put our hands on the planchette and started saying goodbye. After doing that, the knocks on the wall stopped, and the lights in the living room turned back on. We were still all very scared, as I packed up the board and put it back in the attic. To this day, I still believe that we were so lucky to escape with our lives that day. This happened to me during the summer last year. I was 15, so I did not have my driver's license yet. That would mean that I would walk the same path to work every single day. I used to work at a company that my friend's dad owned. On my way to work, I would always have to take this very long road that was right next to the train tracks. On this particular day, I happened to stumble across an old killer clown mask. The mask was on the floor. When I got a closer look at the mask, I saw that it was stepped on. I did not really know what to do, so I took a picture of the mask and then I went on my way to work. At work, everything was the same, but today I finished early, so 1 hour later, I started my long journey back home. I took the same long path, but the clown mask was not there anymore. Now I got really scared, because I did not know who took the mask. So I started running and eventually made my way back home. The next day after work, I was walking on the long road when I heard a weird laughing sound. This sounded like a clown laughter. I quickly turned my head towards the sound, only to find a clown standing near one of the cars. He started speed walking towards me. Once he was about 15 feet in front of me, I realized that he was wearing the same mask that I found on the floor the other day. This terrified me. "Did you happen to take a picture of my clown mask?" he asked me. I stood there in fear, as I slowly replied with no. I already started backing up slowly, since the clown did not seem to believe me. That was also when I took out my phone to start recording. Then I broke into a full sprint towards my house. I did not dare to try and look back the entire way home, because I would constantly hear laughing and loud footsteps. As I got near my house, I was very tired, so I looked back behind me. I did not see anything. This confused me, since 20 seconds ago, I was hearing laughing and footsteps. Either way, I did not really care as I quickly walked up to my house door and got inside. Later that night, while I was laying down in my bed on my phone, I had a weird feeling. I slowly got out of bed, opened the blinds, and looked outside towards the street. Standing across the street in the tree line was the same clown, smiling at me while waving his hand. I ran downstairs to tell my mom about the clown outside. When I took her to my window and we looked outside, there was no one there. Clearly at this point, I knew she did not believe me. Later that night, I heard some knocking coming from the window downstairs. I knew it must have been that same clown, so I walked downstairs. I followed the sounds to the back door, where I saw the clown staring at me through the door. I was so scared I ran upstairs to my mom and told her to call the police. When the police arrived, they searched the entire backyard and also searched the inside of the house to be safe. Since they could not find anything, they left, telling us to call back if the clown returned. To this day, the clown has never returned, but I am never taking that same path to work again. My friend and I always like to explore the woods that are close to my house. On this specific week, we got a big snowstorm in our town, so the woods were covered in snow. Since my friend and I already agreed to go in the woods that day, we still decided to go, even if there was lots of snow. Also, there was sightings of clowns in the area during that week. We did not think much of it because our town is not that small, so we just assumed that it would be very hard to run into a clown. When we finished packing up our stuff, we decided to begin the 5-minute walk to the woods. On our way, we realized that most of the snow on the streets were gone. Once we arrived at the woods, the entrance was blocked by a giant pile of snow. So we decided to look around for a way in, until we found footprints in the snow. These footprints were not made by any animal, meaning there must have been people who went in these woods. So we decided to follow the footprints in the snow and slowly make our way into the woods. After a few minutes of walking into the woods, my friend stopped me and said that he saw something in the distance, but he is not sure what it was. At this point, none of us were scared, because we knew it must have been some sort of animal. I quickly turned my camera on to record, and we continued walking further into the woods. Suddenly, as I was recording, I saw a clown pop up from behind a tree. He was wearing all dark clothes with the terrifying killer clown mask. I am pretty sure he was about 30 feet away from my friend and I. I looked at my friend, who whispered to me that we should run. We both started sprinting out of the woods. Not far behind, we could hear running through the snow, meaning we were being chased. My friend ended up slipping and falling in the snow. I quickly turned around to help him. I helped my friend and also picked up a large stick from the woods. By this time, the clown was very close to us, so I threw the stick towards him. The stick managed to hit him, slowing him down. Now my friend was all good, so we started sprinting towards the high school, because we did not want the clown to follow us home. Once we arrived at the high school, we looked around for a spot to hide, so that we can lose the clown. We ended up going into some bushes by the high school. Soon, the clown arrived near the school. I could see the clown from the bush I was hiding in. I was so scared that he might find us in the bushes. After a few minutes, the clown decided to leave the school, and we finally left the bushes. On our way home, we tried to forget about our experience, but every time I think about it, I always wonder what the clown's intentions were for chasing us.